One of the things that I tell my students, because these kids are so stressed about everything all the time, and one of the things I tell them is like, it's okay if you feel overwhelmed. You are consuming on any given day more information than the average medieval peasant would consume in a lifetime. Like, of course it's overwhelming. Of course it feels like it's too much. It is too much.
Definitely think you're right, and that it's just because the internet helps everybody do it so quickly, right? Like 5 days in internet time is years, whereas like 5 days for your local zine is probably not so many years, figuratively.
Right, where I guess to loop it back around to the kerfuffle to the girls that are fighting, that in a week that's going to be old news, and the newest drama is going to come out. Right, like the last sort of kerfuffle on right wing media spaces was like, it turns out Steven Crowder is actually the jerk we all thought he was, and he's really mean to his wife, which is maybe the least surprising fact I've ever heard. And you would think that one of the biggest names in right wing media losing their media empire, that is just falling apart at the seams because he embarrassed himself in public and he made an ass of himself with that contract with the Daily Wire. Like, you'd think that would be bigger than it was, but it lasted, what, like 3 days? And you never heard about it anymore? Like, you're right. You're right in that this is unique, not because it is different, but because it is more. And one of the things that I tell my students, because these kids are so stressed, oh my God, they are so stressed about everything all the time. And one of the things I tell them is like, it's okay if you feel overwhelmed. You are consuming on any given day more information than the average medieval peasant would consume in a lifetime. Like, of course it's overwhelming. Of course it feels like it's too much. It is too much. And I hate to put the onus on the individual, but like, we have to learn to turn the device off from time to time, because if a story moves so quickly that you forget about it in 3 days, it probably wasn't that important to begin with. And maybe we don't need to spend all day staring at it.
I guess I'm curious how you would balance there being so many important things going on versus this need to like not overly stress yourself out all the time. Because that's something a lot of people do struggle with is like doom scrolling, for lack of a better word. But at the same time, there are a lot of potentially significant events, depending on like your personal beliefs. There's a variety of things that can be considered like important going on any like given week, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's probably like a conversation to have with your therapist, like
Yeah.
what is the balance for you based on your need to be informed versus your need to not be drowning in a sea of being informed. And I think just as the very far right has this cult of action that drives it, that we must act towards the cause of the movement in all things at all times. Even like namby-pamby liberals have this sort of opposite problem of, I need to be concerned about everything at all times. And like, no, you don't. Participate locally, solve what you can, be kind to those around you, and if something is happening in your reach that you can grab and do something about, then yeah, donate to that cause, go to that rally, participate in that event that is meaningful to you. But this need to, like, as an act of self-flagellation, carry it all on your shoulders, like, I don't think that's benefiting anyone, least of all the people who need help.
Yeah. Have there been significant shifts in like society when new technologies emerge that allow increased communication speeds?
Yes. Oh my God, yes. So when we are looking at the earliest fascist rhetoric in late 19 teens, Italy, and in Germany. So the main architects of this movement are cultural critics, and the mainstreaming of really weird sort of esoteric ideas. Things like seance as a popular pastime coming into the fore as like a thing people did because they thought it was fun. Tarot reading, leaving the like sort of occult parlors and very niche, like super duper niche subcultures, and becoming something that folks talked about and knew about. People like Gabriele D'Annunzio in Italy, who's raging against the weak decadence of the state and how men of action must own the future. or people like Dietrich Eckhart in Germany who are trying to mainstream like the city of Atlantis is where the Aryans are from, and we are superhumans, descendants from people with superpowers. And this notion of a need for importance, I think, is what it all comes down to. Like, as new technology changes and it becomes harder to interface with the world the way that you're used to, we seek the ego, I think is how I could describe it, that we want things that affirm our importance and our validity. And being told that you are the descendants of the master race, that the blood of supermen runs in your veins, is like really, really comforting when you went from working on a small farm that you owned and you owned the labor of to being a cog in a machine in a factory, where your favorite genre of music is going out and a new favorite, in this case jazz music, is coming in, where everyone in your community used to look like you, and now due to immigration and migration and globalizing labor, everyone in your community does not look like you, does not pray like you, does not speak your language. And so you're seeking desperately for something that makes you feel like you matter. And that's one of the things that these fascist movements do so well, is they position the individual as a part of a movement and say, like, you are greater than yourself. You are part of this movement working towards these ends. And when the cause is realized, you will reap the rewards and feel the satisfaction of your victory, which if you're, pulling 60 hours a week in the factory, swinging a hammer, making, enough to make ends meet, maybe, yeah, that sounds pretty good. As long as you don't think about it too hard, it sounds really good. And when these new technological shifts happen, they always carry with them opportunities for groups that previously did not have any volume to start gaining volume in the social conversation. That the radio catapults Black culture into the front of American life, for example, through jazz music. That access to the radio as a form of mass communication and mass media really puts a steroid shot in the suffragette movement and in the pushing for women to get the vote. And these voices that were previously very isolated, previously limited in how far they could reach, are now reaching massive international audiences, right? Artists like Bessie Smith, for example, is an American blues singer. She's touring, she's an African-American woman who 30 years before her time, would have been a nobody, would have been allowed to be a nobody, save for a person that maybe sang at her church. And now she's touring Europe, playing sold-out shows. She makes one of the first music videos ever, one of her songs. And for someone who feels alone and feels like the world is moving past them faster than they can keep up with, the notion of reactionary thinking is really appealing to them.